The reading from John today can be a little confusing. There are some times when you're reading and you just have to know the historical and geological context of the first century, and this is one of those passages. So we have Jesus returning to Jerusalem for another harvest festival. It could have been Passover, Shavuot. We don't know which of the three it is. It doesn't really matter. That's not the central part of this story. But he goes to the court of Solomon, I believe it is, and there's a number of porticos, so it's porches essentially, and it's a pool called the Pool of Bethsaida or Bethzada. Um, in Hebrew, Bet is house, um, and the Zata or the Satha is mercy. So essentially, this pool is called the Place of Mercy or the House of Mercy. It's where a lot of invalids have gathered. Some of them would have come daily, some of them would have been living there. Some would have been dropped off with family, some of them just got there on their own. But the belief around it was that several times a day, an angel would stir the waters, and that the first one that got in the pool after those waters were stirred would be healed. Now, again, this is a culture that didn't have free health care, that didn't have reliable medical care for the average person. Certainly not for the person who was injured or born with issues or had. Was disregarded by society. It kind of speaks to a world without proper paid universal health care, which is something that most Canadians don't understand, but there are a number of people around the world who certainly have that experience. The whole idea was instant healing, getting in there, getting the waters, getting cured, moving on. It was an incredible belief. It was the belief of desperation, but it was belief. And then Jesus comes and he walks into this area where all of these invalids are sitting around, lying around, talking, crying, praying, sleeping, waiting for the waters to move to see who's going to be the first to get in. It's kind of a Hunger Games almost in who gets the benefit of this. And if, like the man in the story that Jesus encounters, you can't move very fast, even when you see the waters stirred, you're not going to be the one who gets there. So he'd been there for 38 years, almost 40 years of his life, the story tells us. So Jesus is there walking among these people. Now we have no way of knowing whether he's even recognized. There's no acknowledgement of Messiah. There's no acknowledgement of healing. There's no acknowledgement of faith. None of this is in this story. The only faith, as I said, is the faith in this healing pool that is implied by the behaviors of all going on. So Jesus walks around and he comes to this man and he says, do you want to be healed? And I remember when I was younger, here listening to the story and reading the story and thinking, what an absolute idiotic question to ask. Of course, someone wants to be healed. Now that I've got a few decades on me, I realize what a profound question that is. Do you want to be healed? Because for so many people on the outside, or who see a simplistic uh, uh, situation in front of us, of course the answer is yes. It's got to be yes. Everybody wants to be healed and whole and healthy. But the question that Jesus was really asking is, are you prepared to take your place in society? Are you prepared to pick up and do your job? Are you prepared to no longer be living on the outside, waiting for someone else to take care of you? Are you prepared to be responsible for yourself? These are deeper questions. And over the years, I have discovered that no, some people just don't want to be healed. They like their victimhood or their situation, or they're so used to it that they don't see anything else. And it's not a blame game. It's not you're the author of your circumstances kind of situation. It's a hard question. Do you want to change? Do you want to now have to answer for your choices, your situation? Do you want people to rely on you for a change? Do you want to be responsible for the outcome of your existence? And the man doesn't answer. All he points to is the pool. I can't get there. When the waters get stirred, someone else always gets there before I can. I had a friend years and years ago, atheist, who was quite anti-Christian. She, for good reason, she had had some bad experiences in her youth, and she and I kind of had a very tentative truce when it came to talking about faith. We got along in a lot of other aspects of our life, but when it came to faith, we kind of walked, well, I don't know that she always walked gently around me, but I tried to walk gently around her. And she told me one time that she didn't have the faith gene, and I laughed in her face. And she didn't laugh, she didn't smile, she didn't smirk. She was being serious, and I did not realize that. So I had to back up my own response and kind of come up with an oh. Um, the concept was ridiculous to me then. It is ridiculous to me now. Out of the respect for that friendship, I didn't pursue or continue talking about how ridiculous I thought it was. But it's a bizarre kind of thing, as far as I can see, because we have faith that people are going to stop at the stop signs. We have faith that people are not going to pick up guns and murder us in our sleep. We have faith that that food will be in the grocery store when we need to go and purchase that. Those are all acts of faith. Faith doesn't have to be reliant on a belief in the divine. Faith is just a belief that something will be happening, or that something will be assured, or something will be there. The man in our story had that kind of faith. Everybody who was in that portico around the waters of Bethsaida had that faith that the waters would heal. They didn't have faith in Jesus. They didn't necessarily have faith in God, but they had faith in something tangible they could touch, they could get into, and they believed. There is absolutely no scientific reason why they should have, but they just did. When Jesus encountered this man, he was asking him, are you prepared to throw up your entire worldview and to walk a different path? And the man didn't answer. There's so many lessons we can pull out of this story. One is it's a quaint historical look at a culture that didn't have medical options, medical care, that didn't have the scientific knowledge that necessarily we have, although who knows what we lost from the Library of Alexandria when it burnt. It's an interesting insight into what happens when people really don't want to change. All of these questions are kind of buzzing around this story, but Jesus doesn't waste time with any of them. Doesn't get into a conversation with this man. Doesn't even acknowledge the pool and the significance of it in this man's eyes. He just says, instead of taking up your mat and going to the pool, take up your mat and walk. You're healed. And there's no conversation about faith, and there's no conversation about sin, and there's no conversation about this will be the rest of your life now. Jesus simply encounters this man and makes his life different. How we view this is a reflection of our own faith, our own relationship with Jesus. Jesus is asking us the same question through this man. Are you prepared to change? Are you prepared to do things differently? Are you prepared to take responsibility for yourself and maybe others around you? Are you prepared to do the work that God has asked you to do? Are you prepared to pick up your mat, whatever that is proverbially? Pick up your excuses, pick up your reasons, pick up your limitations, and do something different. Are you prepared to have God transform you in a way that no one else will recognize? There's no good answer to that. Simplistically, of course, we want to say yes. But really, we have to spend time with that question. Are we prepared for what comes next? The man in the story, he was focused on the pool and healing. What came next wasn't even part of his conversation. But that's what Jesus was asking. Are you prepared for what comes after you have been healed and transformed?